I found this canvas. This canvas was in the dumpster behind Ross, and it was really messed up. So I reframed and I restretched the canvas. See, it had all kinds of stuff on it. There was ketchup, there was mustard, and I noticed that as I reworked the canvas had a lot of abuse, a lot of shame. I found addiction on the canvas, and there was no love. There was absolutely no love. This canvas had not experienced any love. And but I knew that I could do something with it, with this canvas. I knew that it was redeemable. So I took the canvas and I started to rework it. And what I did was I first painted it white. I wanted to clean it up because I couldn't paint what I wanted to paint without it being an absolutely clean surface. So all of the shame and the addictions and everything, I had to cover it all up, because any good artist starts with a clean canvas. And one of my most favorite colors when cleaning a canvas, one of my most favorite colors is, I use a special white. It's called titanium white. And I love this white because it's really good at covering stuff up. It does an absolutely great job. It reminds me of something I read in the Bible where God said, all of your sins I've covered, and I remember them no more. You see, because you can't really paint if you really know that there's ketchup and mustard and shame and guilt and addiction. You've got to cover it well. You've got to cover it completely so that you can start with a fresh canvas. So I use white, titanium white, when I cover the canvas. And the Bible says that He has put all of our sins behind. He remembers them no more. He looks at you and I as though we're a fresh canvas. He starts from freshness. Paul said, forgetting those things that are behind, I press forward. Yeah. You see, I can't see what God is painting in my life if I'm always looking at what was on the canvas when it was in the dumpster and it was broken. I can only see what God is painting in my life if I look forward to what He is doing. See, a lot of times we don't believe God is doing anything in our life because we're always looking at where we've come from. And what that does is that blinds us to where we are going. So I decided that on this canvas I was going to do something really special. Now, when I look at this canvas, I know exactly where I'm going with it. I decided with this canvas that I wasn't going to use brushes. I wasn't going to get really detailed on this particular canvas, though I do have really good brushes. In fact, I was talking to my son last night, and we were talking about paintbrushes. And this is probably one of the most expensive paintbrushes on the market. It's a sable hair paintbrush with a fine tip. What makes this paintbrush so expensive is that no matter how much you use it and you rinse it out, you flick it, and it'll always go back to the point. It never loses its shape. Very expensive. But on this particular painting, I decided that I was going to use a series of sponges, and I was going to sponge paint. Not too many people do that. I like it because it's messy, and I like getting messy. So I use a bunch of different colors, and I just enjoy making a mess. It's all over my hands and my arms. But it's not done. It's not done. This painting is far from being done. But on this particular canvas, I know what I'm going to paint. You don't know what I'm going to paint. In fact, you're looking at it, you probably cannot figure it out. You don't know what's going to go on that canvas. But I know what I'm painting. And I know what the finished product is going to look like. In fact, I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to let you in on my secret of where this is going. See, on this particular canvas, I'm going to put 3 children right there in the background, close together. And they'll probably be like an age 7, age 11, and maybe an age 14. And these 3 children, you're not going to know why, but they're going to be running with their arms out and very big smiles of joy and happiness. And then down here, I'm going to put a woman with her back to us, and she's going to have long black hair, and you're going to see that you're not going to catch her whole body, just the top half, but you're going to tell that she is also running, and her hands are going to be out, and her hair is going to be moving with the wind as she's running full speed towards the children. You see, this particular canvas, when it's framed, I'm going to title it Restoration. That's the name of this painting. When it goes in the gallery, it's going to have a title, a little brass title called Restoration. Don't be laughing at my painting. Several people might have offered to buy this when I'm done. But I'm sorry to tell you that Karen and Rick next to you have already, they promised to pay $1,500 for it. Pastor Bill, to make sure we collect. See, I forgot where I was at. Oh, so she's running towards the children, and the title of the painting is Restoration. Now, why am I painting this particular picture on this particular canvas? You see, nobody knows, but I know that this canvas, when it was broken and it was messed up, this canvas had lost her children. And had lost her children to the county because of their brokenness and their addiction. That brokenness and addiction has taken everything from this woman. But I am painting something into her life I call redemption. And a part of that redemption is the restoration of her children back into her life. And you're going to see the joy on their face because you're going to begin to have a sense of what is happening. It's a reunion of sorts. That's what I'm painting on that canvas. Now, sometimes the canvas doesn't know what is actually going to go on it until it's there. But the artist always knows what he is painting. He is never at a loss. He's never in doubt. He knows exactly where he is going with his masterpiece. When God looks at you and God looks at me, he never looks at us and wonders I'm not sure what I'm going to do. When he looks at the canvas of my life, he knows exactly what he is going to paint. He knows the end product of what he is going to paint because he starts with a picture in mind. Now, there's a problem, though, because a lot of people, when they see a canvas in motion and the painting is not done, a lot of people want to make an assumption of what it's going to be. And they want to paint. They want to paint with the master painter. But there's only one problem, you see. God paints alone. Because only God knows what the end product is going to be. But some people come along and they go, you know, I think I know what belongs in that picture. Because, you see, I like buildings. And I think that we ought to put a building in this picture picture like, oh, maybe the Bank of America building in San Francisco. So I'm gonna put a building in this picture. And I'm gonna make it really tall. And I'm gonna make it really dark. Maybe a window there and a door there. And the problem is that as I'm painting, I'm messing it up. I'm destroying what the master wants to paint. Here's the thing. I've come to believe that God spends most of his time in our life fixing what other people have painted. Because if I'm going to continue this piece of art and I'm going to bring it to a completion, I now have got to take time and start covering what somebody else has messed up. That's a word for somebody. You see, sometimes we allow too many people to paint on our canvas. We allow too many people's opinions, what they think we should be, what they think we should do, and how we should do it, and we get our painting gets mucked up in the process from what God originally has intended for us. And then God has to start cleaning it up so he can get back to his original piece of art and where he's originally going. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about people in relationship and people entering relationships. And I don't know why it came to my mind. Maybe I think I was remembering somebody had been talking to and they were having trouble in a new relationship. Can I just tell you something as a side note? Those of you that are pursuing a relationship, if the person you're pursuing a relationship with wants to rework your canvas, run. Run. God has made you uniquely who you are. And you're a work in progress. And don't let any guy or any gal decide that they should change your canvas into something they want. You see, Deborah and I, we are so completely different. When we were getting married, people were betting that we would not make a year because we were so different. Now, in a lot of ways, we're the same. Ironically, we're the same size, not the same weight, but the same size in everything. Same shoe size, same pant size, same shirt size. When I go to buy her clothes, I remember I was in the store and I was looking for a bathrobe for her, and I couldn't decide whether it was medium or large. So I waited until nobody was looking, and I went over to the corner and I just started trying them on. Because I knew if it fit me, it would fit her. So we're the same that way. Almost the same height. But in many ways, we're completely different. Because she likes bold, loud, in-your-face colors. Red, purple, orange, yellow. And up until maybe a year ago, I stayed completely away from those colors. I like tans and beiges and browns, and I like black. And I decided to break out and be a little like her, and I bought a pair of some blue shirts and things like that. That's very unusual for me. As I get older, I guess I'm changing. You know that we can't go to the movies together? Because inevitably, we will fight in the middle of the theater before the show starts. Because she wants to sit in the middle. I can't watch the movie and sit in the middle because I know everybody's watching me. I have to go up against the wall way at the top where nobody can see me to watch the movie. Because, you see, she goes to a party and she is the party. I go to a party and I got to hide in the back corner and watch everybody. That's why during church, you think I'm in the back being spiritual and not sitting in the front? No, I only come down to the front when it's my turn because I'm hiding in the back. I don't want anybody watching me. I kid you not, we were going to Virginia to see her sister. We got in like at 2, 3 in the morning, and it's a suburban neighborhood. All the lights are out. The streets are dark and they're empty, and we get to her sister's house and all the lights are out. And I said, oh, they're in bed. Now, the first thing in my mind is you go to the door and you knock very quietly, we're here. And her sister will come down and let us in and show us where we're going to sleep. Not Deborah. Not Deborah. Deborah wants to pull in the driveway and start laying on the horn. Woo-hoo! Let the party start. We're here. You see how we're different? I told you that to say this. I'm not going to change her. She is uniquely who she is, and her canvas is simply different than mine. But it is not my job to change her. Nor is it her job to get me to wear bright orange shirts. Okay? So, anyway, side note, for those of you that are going into relationships, if they're trying to change you, run. It's time to turn around and get the heck out of it, because you're getting into the wrong relationship. Only God paints. Let God paint. Let God make you uniquely you. Point number 2 is there are always art critics. There always are critics. When you find fine art, the number of critics multiply. When it's bad art, there are only a few critics because it's obvious that it's bad art. You don't need a critic to tell you that. Everybody just simply knows it. But when it's fine art, the critics multiply. In fact, it's interesting because some of the most famous artists that we have today, and we admire their work, were some of the most criticized painters of their time. Do you know that Picasso, whose work today is of high value, at the time that he was painting it, all the critics spoke against him and his style of art. It was that way with the early Impressionists and those that changed the look of art in their generation. They were criticized. You'll always have critics. The difference between a counselor and a critic is this. A counselor will encourage you to go on. A critic will always find the fault with where you're at. God doesn't respect critics because God is painting with the end picture in mind. Now, before I mess this up, people could have criticized it and said, well, I don't like the use of that color. I have no idea why you put a little red in there. It doesn't look right. Well, it might not look right to you because I'm not done yet. You don't know that I'm going to put a tree in here, and that red is the backdrop to the tree. You don't know that over here, I'm going to start to paint in some heavy foliage, and over here I'm going to bring in a little bit of a road. You don't know that because I haven't painted it yet. When people start criticizing your life, you need to tell them, you can criticize all you want, but I ain't listening because the master artist isn't done yet. I'm a work in progress, and he is working on, and there comes a time where I will be complete and I will be a masterpiece. Paul said it this way in 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 3. He said, I've come to a place, he said, where I care very little if I'm judged by you or by a human court. Indeed, I don't even judge myself. It doesn't matter to me what you think of me. In fact, I try not to critique myself too closely because I know that God is working on me and changing me, and what might be wrong today will be right tomorrow. I'm a work in progress, and I give Him permission to work on in me. I never get worried about being stuck where I am because I know that He is always painting something new, and it's getting better and better. Joyce Meyer said it this way. She said, you're never totally free till you reach a point where you don't care what people think of you and you don't care how they judge you and what you do. Only then can you be free. And I believe that. Paul went on to say, he said, I'm convinced that He who has begun a great work in me, I'm convinced that He has begun it. He will finish it, and He will bring it to completion. It's no wonder. It is no wonder that the Bible says that a righteous man, he can fall 7 times, but he will continue to get up. Because though I fall and something gets messed up on my canvas, it is not the finish of it. God doesn't throw it away. God said, get up, let's paint on, let's keep painting. We'll make it right, we'll make it perfect. It will be a masterpiece if you keep getting up. Never let the failure today or the failure of yesterday, never let that reach a point in your life where you stop God from painting. Because it's not done. Critic. Sometimes we need to tell the critics, just be quiet. Just be quiet. You know, I was criticized most all of my life for what I wasn't, what I didn't do right. And when I thought I did it right, it looked good, I was criticized even for that. I reached a point in my Christian walk with God. I reached a point where I said, you know, God, if I could turn a deaf ear to all the criticism, maybe I could see all the good that you are doing in me. Because sometimes the criticism speaks so loud, it deafens you to the good. When all you hear is criticism, pretty soon you no longer hear the good. You're so attuned to the criticism. And when I stopped listening to the criticisms, I started to see all the good that God was doing. And I saw He is creating a masterpiece, a work of art. I'm going to give you another point. Everything that God does is original art. It is never a copy of anything else. It is original art. It's like music today. You know that there is very little music that is original. When you look at music today, usually the tune may change a little bit, but the lyrics remain basically the same. She left me. He's so fine. We're doing time. I don't know. The lyrics are usually the same. Rarely do you see a song that comes up that is absolutely unique. And it's usually at that time that that song goes up the charts. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? And when it's unique, it stands out from the rest. I was thinking about Christians and churches and what have you. You know, if you go to a church today, most everybody in the church is basically the same. Not City Church, but I'm talking a lot of churches. People tend to dress the same. They tend to talk the same. They pray the same. They carry the same viewpoints. I was thinking about it on the way here today. We went by a church, and I said, you know, I bet you if I walked in that church, I could tell you within probably 2% the makeup ethnically of that group and the way that everybody is dressing in that group and how they're talking and singing today. That's true. I mean, if you go to a church and you hear somebody pray a certain way, Pastor Bill prayed over the offering and he was eloquent. Oh, mighty God, we beseech you today. Make this offering grow in the name of Jesus Christ. And then Pastor Tanya got up to close the service out. And she prayed, oh, in a female voice. Father God, bless everybody as they go home today. In Jesus' name. Because everybody's a carbon copy. The problem with that is I believe that churches should be God's gallery of created art. Where every piece is unique to itself and no two pieces are alike. Because God creates and He is unique in what He makes. Look at creation around us. No two things are the same in creation. Regardless of what it is, regardless of the animal species, nature, plant life, there are no two of anything. Each piece is unique to itself. Don't try to be like somebody else. Don't try to make your masterpiece like somebody else's masterpiece. Let God paint and be creative in your life and make you as unique as He wants to be. I was thinking about posters and mass-produced art. When you mass-produce art, it's all the same. And you might buy it and think it's really beautiful and take it home and put it on your bedroom wall. And then you're invited to somebody else's house and you walk into their bedroom and you see the same poster on their wall that was on your wall. And you think, oh my gosh, I bought the same exact thing they have. How many copies of this is there? And then all of a sudden it doesn't have as much value because everybody else on the block has one. The value is in the uniqueness, and the value is in one of a kind. You see, God doesn't produce mass-produced art. God doesn't produce poster art. He doesn't produce production art. Because if He did, we would know Him as predictable and boring. And God is none of that. He is far from being predictable, and He's far from being boring. He does abstract. He does pop art. He does realism art. And if you look around the room and you reach a place where you look at people's lives and you appreciate the art in their life, you'll see all forms of art that God is painting. And each stands alone beautiful and unique and to be appreciated and of value because there isn't another piece like it. You are uniquely you. I've spent most of my life trying to be other people. I'm crazy that way. Get around a successful person, I want to be successful just like them. I want to drive the same car, do the same thing for a living, and dress the same way. Go hang around with artsy cool people, all of a sudden I want to be artsy cool. I want to grow long hair and a beard and be just artsy cool that way. I go see a movie and I want to be like a star in the movie. Don't let me go to a James Bond movie. I'll go buy a tuxedo on my way through the mall, and I just want to be shaken and not stirred and drive a fancy car and carry one of those little Walter P. Guns. I've reached a place where I realize that God didn't create Scott to be a carbon copy of James Bond. Amen. God didn't create Scott to be like anybody else other than myself. And it's in my uniqueness that he takes pleasure. It's in my uniqueness that he paints uniquely. And he sees me of great value because there isn't another me anywhere. Somebody said, thank God. There is not a duplicate of me anywhere. And that's what makes me of value. That's what makes you of value. I'm going to give you one more. Unexplainable art. Unexplainable art. You see, sometimes we think everything in life has to have an explanation. I ran into somebody the other day that when I walked away from them, I thought, you know, they have an explanation for everything. Have you ever met Christians like that? No matter what it is in life, you know, if God doesn't explain it, they make up one. So Pastor Tanya texted me today that her car was overheating and she had to stop and get antifreeze and she was going to be late, right? So you see, she could say, God, why did my car overheat? There's got to be some spiritual explanation. And if he doesn't tell her, she can make one up. Well, God wanted me to overheat right over here because something was over there, and then I saw somebody and I say, hey, good morning, and there was some spiritual connection that happened in that. And she could just go there. I've come to realize that sometimes what God is doing isn't explainable. And God loves mystery because he is mysterious. And he doesn't tell us everything and give an explanation to everything. And if you look at creation, you'll see that in his creation. I was watching a video about a hotel, I believe it was in Australia, and the name had to do with giraffe, like a giraffe hotel. Very expensive. And when you're in the hotel, all the windows open, and while you're eating breakfast or lunch, the giraffes are roaming around. It's a place to protect giraffes. They're running around, and the giraffes stick their head in the window, and they eat off your plate, and you feed them, right? People travel all over the world to come stay at the Giraffe Hotel, right? And I'm watching those giraffes stick their head in the window with their big old mouth and big lips and little horns on their head. I think those have got to be the god ugliest animal I've ever seen. Big old long neck, little body. And I'm thinking, now, why did God create a giraffe? There's no explanation. I think sometimes God creates stuff simply for its beauty and sometimes to put a smile on her face. Why are there fireflies? What about a platypus? And when you're walking down the sidewalk and you see a slug, ask yourself, why did God create a slug? Because he thinks it's funny when you step on it. And you're barefoot. You go, ooh. There is no other reason. Picasso painted a painting titled Guernica. And it was a painting depicting the destruction of a town with the same name in 1937 during the Spanish Civil War. Many people thought that Pablo Picasso was painting, making an anti-war statement. In fact, during the Vietnam War, that painting was used by protesters against the Vietnam War. And it was a symbol of their protest. But when Pablo Picasso was asked the question, why, Pablo, why did you use so many strong symbols in your painting? This is what he said. He said, the bull is a bull, and the horse is a horse. If you give it a meaning to certain things in my paintings, it may be very true. But it is not my idea to give it this meaning. What I painted is what it is. There isn't a hidden meaning to it. Well, God, why did you do that in my life? Why did this happen in my life? Sometimes there is meaning to it. Sometimes God will tell you why. Sometimes He won't tell you why. Have you ever had that happen? I'm still asking God about certain things in my life, and He ain't answering. Sometimes there is no meaning to it. He did it simply for its beauty's sake. He did it because He liked it. He did it because He finds it attractive. It's like me going to God and saying, God, why did you create a giraffe? I gotta know. And God answers back and says, because it's a giraffe. Well, God, why did you make this? Because I did. Because that's what I wanted to make. There's not always deep meaning. Sometimes art is unexplainable. If you go to a gallery and you look at abstract art and you try to find meaning in it, good luck. The more you try to find meaning, the more you take away from its beauty. It is to be admired for what it is. It stands alone. It's abstract. The beauty is in what it is. It is abstract. There are some times in our life where we reach a place in our life that it is unexplainable. I shared the other week, I think Deborah and I were in a place like that. It doesn't make sense. I can't figure it out. I spent Saturday doodling and planning and thinking and strategizing, and I walked away. We came up with so many ideas. We walked away going, none of it's going to work. I don't know why we wasted a half a day doing it. Because we walked away saying, still, it is unexplainable. I cannot figure it out. But sometimes in life, that's God's way of painting. It isn't meant to be figured out. It's meant to be appreciated for what it is, appreciate where you're at. Don't complain, don't moan, don't groan. Appreciate where you're at for what it is, and know that God continues to paint. You may go for years and still not figure out why you went through that season, why you went through that problem, why that thing happened in your life. It may never make sense to you. And maybe it's not supposed to. If I'm painting a masterpiece, and I know that I need a little color over here, and I know that I'm going to paint over it, and those two colors are going to mesh and blend. When I paint over here, you may walk by and say, why do you use that color hue? Why did you use brown? I don't have to tell you. Wait and see the finished product. Maybe when you see the finished product, it'll all kind of make sense to you. I was reminiscing the other day about episodes in my life. Actually, we were driving back, and I was having a brain issue. And I was thinking about a guy that I actually worked with in San Francisco. Very entitled, his father was extremely wealthy. And I was thinking about this guy while we were driving. And I was thinking about all the privileges he had in life. And went to the finest school. His daddy built this mega company that just handed it to this guy. And he didn't earn it. He didn't just give it to him, you know. And his daddy passed away, and he was given this enormous wealth, just enormous wealth, unbelievable. And I was thinking, and I started thinking about my childhood. And I was thinking, God, why did I grow up in the home that I grew up in, and my parents, the way they were, and my siblings, and you know, I didn't go to a nice school, and you know, early in life I went into the ministry, and that's a story in itself, and that had its ebbs and flows and ups and downs and disappointments and all of that. And I said, now I'm at an age where I'm at today, and why couldn't I be like that guy and have a rich daddy? And why? And I started to kind of feel a little bit sorry for myself. Like, I wonder if everybody, if other people grew up in an environment like mine. You know, we're on the wrong side of the tracks. It's high rent district now. If you go to my neighborhood where I grew up, it's a very high rent district. But back in the day, it was called the North Redondo slums. It was the bad area. It was the real horrible area. They've torn out all those homes and they put in big condos now. It's a kind of a beachfront property thing. But we were North Redondo slums. And I ran with a bunch of losers and failures and druggies, and it's just why, God? Why? Did it have some super duper thing to make me into something? Why did I grow up like that? Why in that environment? Why did those parents? I don't have an answer. Maybe there's something very deep in me that God planted as a result. I don't know. But I do know this. I may never know until I get to heaven and God may show me the great mural of my life. But I do know this. For whatever reason things happen, I'm at where I'm at now. And God is painting right now as a result. God, why, you might be saying, why was I on drugs? How did I get involved in that? Why did I spend time in jail or prison and waste a part of my life? What good came out of that? You know, you may never know. But you can know this, that God is painting right now. And some of that He's not going to tell you. He just keeps painting. You know, it's funny that artists, when they're working, don't talk a lot. I don't paint, have it for many, many years, but when I did, I set my garage up like a studio, kind of sorts. And when I went in there and that door shut, you best not come in and talk to me. Because when I'm working, I am focused on what I'm doing. And chances are, if I'm doing really detailed stuff and you talk to me, I'm not going to respond. Because I'm focused on the detail of my artwork. God is painting in your life. And sometimes He's not going to stop to tell you all the reasons why. You have to trust Him to paint on. You have to trust His love for you, that He wants the best for you, that everything He is doing in your life has an end game in mind. And He will get you there. You just keep trusting Him to paint. And it's not to say that God doesn't want to share with us. There are times where He shares deeply with us. But not everything God does is He going to give you an answer for. Let me give you Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8 and 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts. Neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. My thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways, declares the Lord. I'm kind of glad for that. I'm glad that His thoughts aren't my thoughts, because I'd really mess myself up bad. And that His ways are not my ways, because I'd be destroyed. I'm glad He has a plan for my life. I'm glad He's painting, and though I don't know what the end might look like, He knows. And He's working towards that goal. I'm glad for that. I'm glad that I'm unique. I'm glad that I'm precious. You see, because while He's painting, you never see this. It's gone. You only see it if I tell you about it, but you don't see it while He's painting. It's as though it never was there.